Before we get very far into our next story, we do have a warning for you tonight. What you're about to see and hear may not be suitable for children. Tonight, take a walk in their world.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to Transpicuous News again. So, it is October 6th. To review, I wrote the really long article about the various news going on and the distractions of Las Vegas, talked about Catalonia, things like this. Then yesterday I recorded a news update. Transpicuous News, Transparency and Distractions for October 5th. And I dug into a few things a bit deeper. Now, the big piece in that was the whole Equifax and the Social Security numbers and how now the government and the IRS and Equifax are now saying, oh, you know, this old Social Security number system it's old, it doesn't work anymore, we need to change it to something better. After I recorded that, hold on guys, I'm gonna try and fix the light here situation. Sorry, it's kind of dim out here. After I recorded that, and I went back and listened to one little piece, and I reviewed a couple of notes that I had. And I stewed on it all the afternoon. There's something here, there's something here. I did some more research last night. I got up at 6 o'clock this morning. It's now 10 o'clock in the morning. I've been going hard doing research since 6 this morning, which led into other areas that I'm probably going to do a second report today on, those other areas, but I digress. So here is, I'm going to try and outline this as clearly and concisely as I can. Those of you who know me and have followed my work with removing the shackles and Transpicuous News, etc. for years, you know that this aspect, the financial questions, the financial system, the search for the answers, the search for that piece has been one of my driving things for years. And I go off topic and I get involved in a lot of other discussion. There's a lot of other rabbit holes out there that I go down. But a lot of things always kind of tie back into the financial stuff. It always comes back to money, doesn't it? This is the one that got me. So I'm going to say off the hop, I don't have proof for anything of what I'm going to lay out for you. I have no proof. This stuff is kept very well hidden, let's just say. But I'm going to give you my gut summary on what I see happening here. So yesterday we talked about Equifax. We talked about the Equifax hacks. And we talked about how, oh yes, everyone's 145.5 million people's financial data was accessed in this hack through Equifax. There are multiple hacks that have gone on. Now, the first major question I have right off the hop is, if this was a hack, who did the hacking? Because if it's just a bunch of people, a bunch of hackers going in to steal data, are they doing it for the joyride to prove that they can? Or is there a motive for it? Why else would you go into Equifax and steal everyone's social security numbers? Unless you're planning on using them. Have we seen this happen? No, we haven't. We haven't seen a massive amount of, all of a sudden, everyone's social security numbers have been hacked and now the credit rating is through the floor because these hackers took out millions of dollars of loans on these social security numbers, et cetera, which is always the worry. We haven't seen that. We have some basic facts about the hack. A, the fact that Equifax never talked about it for a full over a month after it happened. They didn't release the information. We have the timing of it. Now, it's just come out yesterday. There was another hack back in March of this year as well, the first hack. But we look at, when did all of this blow up into the public's eye? When? It was September. September, it was all raging around the mainstream, et cetera, and the alternative media saying, oh, Equifax has been hacked and security and blah, 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 blah. And Equifax has not come forward with any fucking information. Really. Like, they have not issued anything that's an explanation. And they've been pulled up on congressional hearings now to explain themselves. How did you allow this to happen? Now, yesterday I talked about the fact of, oh, lo and behold, the IRS has just hired Equifax to safeguard the private taxation information of American citizens. And it's like, really, Equifax, you just hired Equifax. We talked about this yesterday. It's jaw-dropping. Like, are you that fucking stupid? Or are they? So I want to put some hypotheses out. As I touched on yesterday, what if the Equifax hack was no more than a circus show to enable them, the quintessential they, them, to push the need to change the system? What if Equifax wasn't hacked? What if it was all a story put out so that they have the excuse, oh, look, we have to immediately change the social security numbers? Now, the other thing I talked about yesterday, and again touched on, was the Treasury Direct Accounts. Now, before I get into this, I want to just add a little proviso to this and say, back when this really started going viral, I did a Transpicuous Views special report, and I had Heather Giraffe and the old OPPT gang on the show. And I did that because I wanted to lay out the information. I wanted to lay out the information of what was actually going on, not just rumors, not just secondary stories. I wanted to get it all straight. Since then, I haven't followed it because I have no interest myself in playing the game of the Treasury Direct funds. So I haven't followed it. I've been very, very busy in a lot of other projects. So I didn't have the time to even keep up with a lot of the news going on. But I get all the basic bits and pieces. Now, the one thing I will say about Heather Giraffe is, when it comes to law, she knows his shit inside and out. Inside out, upside down, forwards and backwards. I learned a massive amount from just listening and talking to Heather. And the one thing she has always stated, and when you look and really look, the one thing that seems to play out is they have to follow their own rules in law and in finance. Now, they can make the rules really shadowy. They can make them very hard to distinguish which rules you have to follow and make the formula very difficult to find out. But if someone breaks the formula, if someone figures out, this is how we go to court, this is what we say, this is how we present it, and this is what we do, and you follow everything exact that their rules require, they must follow the rules. The same thing with finance. If you do these things and you do everything according to their unspoken, if you will, rule book, they must follow their own rules, which is why, going back to Treasury Direct Accounts, which is why over the years, there have been people who have accessed their accounts, accessed their Strawman accounts, if you will, their Treasury Direct Accounts, and God knows there's a lot of these things hidden all over the place. They get signed into an NDA, an ironclad NDA, so they therefore can't go public and start telling everyone, oh, this is what I did and this is how I did it. They cannot reveal the inner workings of what had taken place. People have accessed these things in the past because they figured out the exact formula to be able to do it. Now, sometimes we know they changed the formula. Sometimes they add a little something. So even to the point of the way you search for the basic information when you're trying to find out your information on these accounts, they will change the search parameters, i.e. back before 2012, you could look up a certain set of numbers on a certain website and you could access some of these accounts and be able to see the totals. And then all of a sudden things got changed. They just took the information off that website or buried it under some other obscure label. And all of a sudden people couldn't find the information, which is how they keep hiding these things. But the rules are the rules and they have to follow the rules. So we look at this summer and we look at how things played out. Like I said, I haven't followed the stuff with Heather closely because I've been doing my own stuff. Heather got arrested and was jumped all over the place, apparently, from one place to another place to another place to another place, never being, it seems, truly arrested. Does that make sense? There's always been why wasn't she locked up in an orange jumpsuit and hauled off and thrown in prison to await trial like anyone else would be? So she wasn't arrested in the sense that anyone else would be arrested. If someone else had committed a fraud, a felony against a bank, they'd be hauled off in the orange jumpsuit and put into prison. Pardon me. That's not what happened. And there were court cases after court cases that she was brought back and forth into court several times. Now, I have no idea what was said. Groot, go away. I have no idea what was said or what transpired in those court cases. Like I said, I didn't follow it. But the very fact that she was continuously called back in, and knowing Heather as I do, I guarantee that she probably had all that pieces worked out. Enough so, to the point that they released her, and she's not allowed to talk apparently to people, etc., but they released her, and awaiting further what? Not quite sure. Further trial? Awaiting further what? If this was anyone else, if this was anyone, like I say, if it was some con man perpetrating a fraud, a credit card scheme, or something, they would not. This is not how it would have played out. So I'm going to hypothesize. I hypothesize that Heather played the cards on the table. Exactly right. She laid it out in a way that they could not get around it. She laid it out probably clearly and concisely, according to their own rules, which puts them in a really, really big problem. She laid out by their rules stand. They have to follow them. Now let's jump forward. Now we have Equifax. And alongside the Equifax is the immediate call of how social security numbers need to just go bye-bye. And of course, how is everyone trying to access the Treasury Direct Accounts? Through the use of their social security numbers. Why? Okay, on the surface, you could say they've cracked the system. They know that the people have cracked the system. There's too much information out there. And sooner or later, they will have to fess up. They will have to open these accounts. They will have to allow people to see them. And in doing so, there's a huge amount of questions that are going to come up. And of course, then they've got to answer, where do these accounts come from? Why are these Treasury Direct accounts with my name and my social security number, or as a Canadian social insurance number? Why do I not know about them? Who gave you permission to? Where's the consent? Consent. We'll get to that. Which is one big thing. Now, and here's the thing. Remember that the strawman accounts are pretty well known. Even people who are not all that aware of all the bullshit that plays out. Most people have heard of the strawman accounts and have even at least a basic kind of idea of what the conspiracy theory is about. It's not new. It's not new. But like I hypothesized yesterday, and I'm going to get into this bigger because this is the big piece. As far as I'm concerned, this is the big piece. Those accounts are just markers. All they are is markers. It's like an entry in an accounting book. Here's that account. Here's the person's name and social security number, where that account came from. There's the amount that was in the account that was the baseline. But there's nothing in those accounts. As a matter of fact, and like I said, I can't prove this, but I am willing to bet a shiny loonie that those accounts are absolutely empty. There's numbers on the screen. We know that. But what we don't know is the off-ledger stuff. And those accounts are tied to this. We're leveraged over here. And these derivative funds were set up under these accounts. And that all that money is gone. It's been leveraged and derivatized, if you will, out of existence. And I think that we may find out that a good portion of the, what is it now? $250 trillion in derivatives is actually based on these accounts. So now we have a real conundrum. These guys, these talking heads who make these rules, not only have the accounts been discovered and become public knowledge, to a lesser extent public knowledge, we'll say, but within the people who would be the type of people who act on it, it went viral. Now, it's one thing to have to admit they exist at all, but it's another thing to have to admit that they exist and that there's nothing in those accounts. Zero buckus. Like I said, the financial system is empty, and I've talked about this for years now. And within their own defined rules, they have been creating money and creating so-called fiat currency in any way, shape, and form they can. That is, like I said, the vaccine market, the major medical pharmaceuticals, especially the vaccines. They set derivatives up on those vaccines when they're launched, which is why you keep getting pandemics and everyone is forced to buy all these vaccines, because that's how they're building the derivatives, to invent and pretend money that they can then use for other things. Same thing with wars. You've got to invent and pretend and make leveraged money, and you make it appear out of this here, but it's all convoluted. It's all hidden in a massive blowback situation of everything tied to everything. But the end result is still the same. There is no money. None. Everything now is working on literally just the fumes. left in the gas tank that they can just kind of keep trying to recycle through and through and through. And the new financial system they thought they were going to put into place, and we talk about this all the time. This money, this new financial system that they've tried, and I've talked about for years, that they've been trying to put into place, attached to the global currency revaluation, the RV, etc. It's not going to happen. There will never be an RV. It's not going to happen. And this is the first time I'm actually saying this in a report. Because there's always been a part of me in the background has been like, well, maybe they'll push that through and just, the last ditch effort. It's not going to happen. And the reason why is how they had initially set it up to play out. That the reason how they were going to create this influx of money was to play a gambling game. Well, basically you take certain currencies and you bet on them, and then you skyrocket the value, and hey, look, now they have value. The entire concept of this betting on a currency, of bumping up a currency's value, and you put your money in, and then you bump up the value, and then you can take your money out, and hey, look, that's magically become worth 100 times, 1,000 times its original value. It's not going to work, because now there's no value left in the system whatsoever to even play that game. They now need a new financial system, which is, as I've talked before, why we're seeing this move to digital currency. We're seeing the move to digital currency. We're seeing, of course, they're pushing Bitcoin. Oh, but aren't they doing the exact same thing with Bitcoin right now? Right? Bitcoin starts here, and then it skyrockets. And people bought in, and they sell, and then it plummets, and then it skyrockets, and this plummets. It's completely manipulated at this point. But that does not mean to say that cryptocurrencies in and of themselves are not going to make a massive change. And I've talked a little bit about this before in the special I did with Jeff Gates a few weeks ago. So I'm not going to fully get into this. The digital currency, it is another fake system for them. It's another fiat system, if you will. So they create these systems, and then using blockchain, they're going to try and create this new social security numbers. A new way of accessing it. But there's a difference between open blockchain and a closed blockchain, which is something I just learned about. I did not realize this. I.e., the IRS could start its own blockchain to house the social security numbers. But it could be an internal blockchain, i.e., it's not external. No one else can see it. Only they can see it. Which opens up the big questions of honesty. Like, really? How do we trust you guys to manage the system? Because really, we don't trust you at all. The statement I covered yesterday about consent, and they talked about biometric security, thumbprints, eye, retinal scans, etc., which is rolling out in India right now. India is a major testing ground for all of this. To get your consent for them to set up the exact same system all over again, where they build, another whole set of Strawman accounts for you, and then they start doing the leveraging and derivatives again? Probably. But regardless, it's a beginning of a new system. Now, as a side note to that, as I said before, you know what? Fiat currency is a fiat currency. We already use a fiat currency right now to pay our rent, our mortgage, to buy food, to put gas in the car, to pay our electricity bill. We already use it. So I do not fall for this whole fear thing about Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies are just going to be a terrible thing. You're already using, regardless of what it has in value, regardless of where it goes. It's still fiat currency. You're still going to use it to buy and sell. A cup of coffee, a car, doesn't matter. It's a tool. It's how you use the tool that defines whether it's a good or bad tool, right? Those Treasury Direct accounts are empty. And what I see playing out right now with the Equifax and the Social Security numbers, I honestly believe is them trying to cover up the very fact, not just the existence of those accounts, i.e. stop people from being able to access them at all anymore, but the very fact that they are completely gone and empty. They have no value left in them whatsoever. I'm still researching. I'm still doing a lot of research on this, trying to dig out the little pieces that I can. But I want people to be aware of how this is playing out. And shit's going on. It is really, really interesting right now. And this whole piece that we're talking about right now is rolling along underneath everything else, and no one's taking any notice of it. But it is major. So chew on that for a little bit. Tell me what it tastes like. I'm sure we'll get around to discussing it again very, very soon. And that's it for me. I'll talk to you later. Bye, guys.